Hey guys, Lethany Rich Tano here. Also, I just want everybody to respect the drip. I'm in the Walmart Garfield collection. Guys, I want to talk about Fetch the Bolt Cutters, Fiona Apple's brand new album that she just released a couple of days ago, and I've been listening to it pretty much nonstop since then, and I have a lot of things that I want to say about this album, so buckle in. Fiona stands, grab the bolt cutters. First of all, I know that this isn't like a revolutionary opinion of mine because literally everybody thinks this thing is fucking fantastic, and that's because it is fucking fantastic. So yeah, I would say that this thing is probably a 10, but I will say that I would say that most of Fiona Apple's albums rate that high for me just because they're so like emotionally resonant and effective for me personally, and this one hits some different marks than her other albums, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, and it's, in a way, it's a much healthier album, actually, I think, and some unhealthy part of me likes it less for that. So, Fetch the Bolt Cutters is joyful, almost, is what I would say. It has a really optimistic energy about it, even though it talks about a lot of things that are obviously very negative. It still covers, like toxic relationships, which is a constant theme in Fiona Apple's albums, but what I noticed about it is that it's much less self-blaming, and that's something that was really present, I feel like, in Fiona's previous works, is there's something wrong with me. On an innate level, there's something wrong with me, and I feel like this because of these failed relationships I've had with men, right? So that's something that I feel like is very present in Fiona's catalog, is this, I don't know what's wrong with me, this just keeps going wrong. All these men that I date, like, I'm having issues with them, or something goes wrong, something, like she says in Left Alone, she says, I'm too hard to know. So that's, I'm too hard to know is like kind of a thesis, I feel like, of many of Fiona Apple songs, especially songs off Tidal, where she talks about what happened to her when she was younger, and how that affected her, like Sullen Girl. There's just something there that's like, I can't connect to people in the same way. And something I noticed while I was thinking about that is that Fiona Apple does not talk about women on her albums. Like, this is something, these specific expressions on this album are not present anywhere else in her work, because in her previous work she is like a solitary figure surrounded by this sea of men who she loves dearly and she connects with on an emotional level, for sure, but things keep going wrong, and she doesn't really have any women in her life, and she doesn't really talk about them. So obviously Fiona has had an issue with depicting women, and I think that that ties back to a lot of what she's bringing up here, and in a lot of interviews that I've read about, she's saying that this is like a breakthrough for her in these new songs where she's talking about women. And something that came up a lot in terms of the songs about connecting to women on this album is this idea of getting through to other women via the men that you're mutually involved with. Across time, it's not always a cheating thing, but sometimes the boyfriend will leave you and then get with this other girl, and then you are stuck somehow trying to get through to her. Or like in Newspaper, like feeling connected to her through this kind of like shared trauma that you have of both being with this man who like mistreated you. Or in Ladies, where she talks about her ex's ex-wife leaving the dress behind with the note that says, I don't know if I'm getting across, but I'm really trying. I don't know if I'm getting through. And then she, in Shamika, she says, she got through to me and I'll never see her again. And then I feel like for her, a lot of these things are coming kind of to their fruition, where she's talking about these women who are treated like less than a guest by their husbands, who are being mistreated, who are being raped, who are being victims of sexual assault, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, all these things as a result of their relationships with men. And I think that that's such like a powerful thing that she's saying, that she's trying to get through to these women, yet another woman to whom I won't get through, like in Ladies. And it's interesting to me that that's something that she's never brought up in her work before, because I think Fiona Apple albums are very melancholic. They're kind of very lonely because, I mean, well, she's a solitary person, really, like, and she's talked about this many times, especially in Left Alone, but that's more in a romantic sense, like, than a sense in general. But even Fiona Apple, like, she likes to stay at home, like, you know, she's kind of a homebody. She likes to stay at home and she likes to be by herself. So it's interesting to me that her preferred, not her preferred, but the method of connection that she's explaining, like, with these other women who have been involved with the men that she's been involved with, is through, like, this idea of just leaving things in his cupboard, or passing notes along, or watching from afar, like in newspaper, where it's, like, implied that maybe she's, like, seeing these things in the tabloids. Like, she doesn't really have the personal friendships with them. She doesn't really have the personal friendships with them, as opposed to, like, this kind of, like, parasocial trauma bond type of thing. You know what I mean? I loved the sentiments of love expressed on this album, because in a way they're really contradictory. Not contradictory per se, but in terms of Left Alone versus I Want You to Love Me, it's, like, literally polar opposites. So you can see that, like, she's grown and her perspective has changed. That, or even though on this level that once people get too close, then she shuts down and asks to be left alone, on a surface level she does still want to be loved. And I've been talking this whole time about, like, themes on the album, and I haven't even gotten into the way that it sounds, which is fucking phenomenal. Like, I don't even get me started. Like, I put in my earbuds and I pressed the first track and I was like, oh my god, genius. The piano on the first track blew my mind. I almost wish that that had been included more, just because, like, that's one of my favorite ways for somebody to utilize instruments, is these, like, rollicking piano chords. A lot of this has, like, a really, like, a very, like, cabaret, like, I can imagine her, like, performing it on this, like, dark stage with a single spotlight and just, like, a really thin crowd. It kind of has, like, a very, yeah, like, a cabaret, like, sound. And I love that. I think that it's really good. And the way that she stripped it down from, like, having this, like, full plush, clean arrangement, rather to having, like, this very, like, homegrown feel, like, feeds into this, like, very, like, raw, manic sort of energy to it. I think that it shows a lot of growth for her as an artist, especially in terms of just, like, opposite themes that are popping up from, like, old songs in her catalog that I can show with new ones. Like, in Paper Bag, she says starving works. She talks about that. She says, I've been sucking it in so long on Heavy Balloon. And that she spreads, like, strawberries and climbs like peas and beans, it's just really good. It's, like, a really great sentiment. And even though this album, I'm gonna say that I don't know that I would say it's more angry than her previous albums, but the anger is directed finally outside rather than, like, being stuck inside herself, you know? Which is much healthier, I would say. Like, I feel that this reads as, like, a much less dysfunctional album, and when she feels these things of anger, she doesn't deflect them back on herself and she doesn't shut them inside. She feels, like, righteous anger. Even when it's not righteous, she's allowing herself to feel it, which I think is so good. Like, I've always really loved Fiona Apple's ability to say things that are like self-affirming, and yes, my feelings matter and you're going to listen to me. I'm angry and you're going to listen to me. Because I feel like that she has a lot of songs like that. When the Pawn is an album that's a lot like that too, where she has, like, these big, like, truisms that are like, here's how it is, this is how it is, like, get gone. How many times do I have to say get away, get gone, put away that shit you're selling, because I do know what's good for me and I've done what I could for you. That, I love it. But I think that that comes up here too on the drum set. Oh, drum set. Oh, drum set is one of my favorite songs, if not my favorite song on the album. And I think that it's it's so simple, but it gets to the core of this big issue. Like, she's allowing herself to be like, so why did you give up on me? Because I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. That's a good thing to hear, because I don't know. I'm not going to say that Fiona Apple's other musics are kind of wound licking, but for me, when I listened to them, I was like licking my wounds. I used them kind of in that way with a lot of her old catalog. Not all of it, obviously. Like I said, When the Pond has a lot of material that's very, like, you know, sturdy in its values. But this album really blew my mind with that sentiment specifically, is that though the men who are subjects of her songs have often been villainized, never was it so, like, detailed and explicit, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not dressed up in a pretty metaphor, you know? Especially for her. That song is it's really powerful. It's just a really powerful song. I love her singing style on this album too. It's much more like speak singy than like her kind of classic jazzy, full-voiced. Rather, she's kind of just talking through it, and I think that she really has the charisma to carry that. I love in Ladies, at the very beginning of Ladies, when she's just saying ladies, ladies over and over again, like she's kind of like sleazily toasting, ladies, ladies, ladies. I love that. Oh, and the instrumental on that song too, it's like bonka bonka. Oh, it's so good. I love Cosmonauts. Cosmonauts is very great. Cosmonauts is a great love song. It certainly is not, it's not a diluted love song, you know what I mean? Many love songs are like, we will never have any troubles, we will be together forever, but this one is like, we're gonna be stuck here together, and you're gonna like it, and you're gonna figure it out, because we've been together so long, I've grown into this person where I need you now. And if that's not monogamy, what is, you know? It's not even the theme of it, like the themes of it, that I think is really great. I just love how it sounds, and it's super catchy to me. You and I will be like a couple of cosmonauts, except with way more gravity than when we started off. You know what I love? I love Relay. I haven't mentioned Relay at all yet. I love when she says, I resent you for being raised right. I kind of do be resenting people for being raised right. Alright, I'm about to wrap this up. I just wanted to say also that this feels like a very timely release, especially because Fiona, like, is somebody who's very comfortable at home. So a lot of these songs feel almost claustrophobic because they're all recorded in her house, and you can hear the sounds of her house. Like, she's drumming on the walls and the floors and stuff. Like, it's a very homey album, and there's, like, a claustrophobia about it, especially the theme of it being fetch the bolt cutters, because I've been in here too long, you know? And I think it's a great album to listen to while you're stir crazy, because that's what I've been doing. And the themes of it, this kind of like trappedness, but also this like self-assuredness, like, I don't know. I think that it's a great album to be released right now, and it feels like she wrote it yesterday with how much it aligns with what's going on right now. Now I'm going to say my favorite and least favorite songs, just to wrap this review up. So before I say this, I'm just going to say that I don't dislike even the songs that I said are my least favorite songs, because this is really like, it's a no-skip album. Like, I'll listen to the entire thing, and I have been listening to this entire thing over and over again, but these are the ones that are most memorable to me. My favorite songs are Ladies, Cosmonauts, and Drum Set. I don't know if you could tell that by the fact that I kept mentioning all of them. I think they're all very catchy. I think the instrumentals are done incredibly, and I love the lyrics. My least favorite songs are On I Go and Under the Table. On I Go, it's not bad at all. It's just the fact that the lyrics don't really change. Just because it's kind of the same thing chanted over and over again, it's difficult for me to like sit through the whole thing every single time, just because I have ADHD and I'm like, let's go, you know? But it does, like, the sound of it varies a lot, which I think that it's still a really good song to listen to. And I also said Under the Table. I just said Under the Table because it's one of the least memorable ones to me, and I think that yeah, I'm just not sure. It didn't affect me deeply. Oh, and I didn't mention For Her. For Her is also one of my favorite songs, but it's tinged with trauma, you know? So it's not largely enjoyable, but I love it, and I think it's an excellent piece of art. Anyway, that's all I had to say about Fetch the Bolt Cutters. If you haven't streamed Fetch the Bolt Cutters, get off my channel and go stream Fetch the Bolt Cutters. Fetch the Bolt Cutters is incredible. Thank you, Pitchfork, for giving it a 10. I would also probably give it a 10 or a 9.5 because I am not deeply attached to it yet as I am with my other Fiona albums. But I'll be there soon, I'm sure. So I'm going to give it a 9.7 to a 10. Alright, thank you for watching.